Our next speaker, Jose Lopez, has a history of educating and both in written and public speaking, and he has a vast knowledge in terms of U.S. colonialism, especially in the regions of the Southern Hemisphere. Jose is the executive director of the Puerto Rican Cultural Center. He's also a lecturer at UIC in Northeastern Illinois, correct? Yeah.
Not anymore, but I was. Okay.
Oh, okay, forget that. Anyway, so please welcome Jorge. I'm sorry, Jose.
Thank you. I'll just follow up with the comments that Jorge made. I think they're very important, and that is that we have to connect the dots of what's happening. We have to look at what is happening with ICE and the criminalization, particularly of Latinos with ICE, literally the invasion of Venezuela by the U.S. and the criminalization of Maduro and the people that he overthrew, but more importantly, almost just a few months before he goes and takes Maduro out, he frees one of the most important drug dealers in Latin America, the president of Honduras, the ex-president of Honduras, but is able to elect a successor in Honduras who will carry out the same narco trafficking that was happening in Honduras before. So if we don't connect those knots, the knots of ICE, the invasion of Venezuela, the envisioning of taking over Greenland and Canada, and connect the dots to Colombia, Mexico, obviously Panama, and look at their military linchpin, which is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is the oldest colony in the world. It is a direct colony of the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court declared in 1922 Puerto Rico belongs to, but it's not a part of the United States. So the idea that Puerto Ricans are citizens is really a misunderstanding of history, because we were made citizens in 1917 with two rights. The right to die for the United States in every war that the U.S. has undertaken since World War I, and the right to leave Puerto Rico without papers to the United States. That's it. Puerto Ricans don't get to elect the president. They don't have any participation in the body politics of the United States. That said, obviously, much of the forces that were used in Venezuela were launched from Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was totally remilitarized after a huge struggle of almost 60 years by the people of Puerto Rico and of Vieques to get rid of the U.S. presence on the island of Vieques as part of the Roosevelt Roads, the largest naval base the United States has outside of San Diego, and obviously right now it is operating right back. But we got to look at something very interesting. Right when they begin the ICE raids, a factory was opened in Barceloneta, Puerto Rico, providing 300 jobs in an island that's undergoing an incredibly horrible economic situation. And that factory was to make the ICE uniforms and American soldier uniforms. Puerto Rican workers making that for the U.S. war machine. If you want to, again, understand this, we have to put it within the context of what the United States has done and what the amazing Eduardo Galeano did in his book, The Open Veins of Latin America, to demonstrate how after 1823, with the issuance of the Monroe Doctrine, the U.S. declared Latin America as its backyard. What can you do in your backyard? Whatever you want. Has had two corollaries. The Roosevelt corollary of 1902, which basically gave pseudo sovereignty to Cuba, and through the plot amendment, and then established the right of the U.S. to intervene directly in the affairs of Latin America whenever U.S. interests were threatened. And then now the Trump doctrine relative to Venezuela. So when we're looking at what's happening in this continent, we have to look at it from a hemispheric perspective. We have to begin to look at it from the vantage point of what are going to be our response from a hemispheric perspective. And we got to tie the knots of what ICE is doing on the streets to what it is doing in the land invasion of Latin America, and particularly now with the attempt to take over Cuba. I think this is really, really important for us to use this moment to reflect and to think about this, but also to think about the very idea that solidarity across the Americas is the response to the war, the U.S. war in the Americas. And I think that's extremely important to think about what that means. And I will point out that even though Jorge spoke about these kinds of divisions that are exacerbated by the U.S. colonial practices, the fact is that the first two major attempts in this community in Chicago were once, literally when ICE began early this year, they raided the parking lot of the National Museum of Puerto Rican Arts and Culture, and our community responded with a resounding no to ICE. And then they tried to obviously literally take a man, follow him into Humboldt Health Hospital, and try someone that they were pursuing, and our alderwoman, Jessie Fuentes, confronted them. And our community came out right away and demonstrated solidarity with our Latino brothers and sisters. I think this is the way we have to think. This is the way we have to begin our practice of rethinking what's happening and rethinking it from the vantage point that the criminalization of Latinos and the criminalization of Mexicans in particular, which has been a practice of the United States since the takeover of Texas and the Southwest, by creating the Mexican bandido, is the same thing that is happening today, not only in our streets, but also in the high seas of Latin America, by declaring the progressive leadership of Latin America as the carriers and the exporters of drugs and the narco traffic, when they are the ones that are carrying out this politics, and they're able to set free one of their boys who did this for years and years, and now will continue through the new government in Honduras. Thank you.